All right, I just did movies, so let's do. I'm just going to talk about my favorite TV shows as well. It'll be, genreless. I'm just going to talk about what my favorite TV shows are that come to mind right now. And some of them I probably talked about on this channel already, but whatever. I'll just try to get through these quickly. Either way, my favorite show of all time is 6 Feet Under, 100%. For a while, I thought it was Sopranos or Breaking Bad, and I'll talk about those shows in a minute here too. But I feel like there's so much that's been said about those shows already, and not enough about some others. So, 6 Feet Under is just like Magnolia being my favorite movie of all time. 6 Feet Under is a show that I really wish that I made, and I am like so jealous that I didn't. And I think it's like the most perfect piece of television that has ever been made. It's got one of the greatest series finales ever made. It actually, to me, it's arguably the greatest series finale ever made, and it's got one of the most wonderful cast of actors that play characters that all feel so real and personal and relatable. Like every single character in that show. I don't want to say you relate to them and I don't see myself in them, but I enjoy seeing them live their lives. That's what I love about the show. Is I might not see myself in all the characters, but I care about all of them and I want to know. I love that the show you're always checking up on, even the side characters that aren't in the family and not even that aren't in the Fisher family, like Rico and Brenda and Keith. I love that the show feels like it gives a shit about its characters so much. I don't know if I've ever seen a show that cares about its characters more than that one. I know that's like a very big statement, but I feel like I've gotten to know those characters in that show more than any other TV show ever. I just know them also. I've also watched it like 4 times at this point. But 6 Feet Under, yeah, I've talked about it plenty on here for sure. It's a solid show, and I don't even have to. I don't want to get into. I don't have to get too much into the details of these things because I don't want to and potentially accidentally spoil something either. So I have to kind of talk about these as succinctly as possible to keep it moving and not not spoil anything and have to start over. So. Yeah, let's talk Sopranos and I almost said Seinfeld. Sopranos and Seinfeld, two 90s classics. No, I know Sopranos was mainly airing in the 2000s, but it technically did air in 99, so that joke I just said still has it makes sense to some degree, all right? Sopranos and Breaking Bad, both those shows are so similar. I might as well, as far as like their cultural impact, I might as well talk about both of them because they feel like almost like the same show. Sopranos is fucking incredible. It's grossly realistic. Sopranos is the kind of show like obviously it's about like the mafia, so a lot of it is just like fucked up and gritty and brutal. It's absolutely like one of the most brutal shows I've ever seen in my life, but I like that it doesn't hold any punches and it isn't afraid to show how fucked up that world can be. The point that it's trying to make of like you don't want to be in the Maya. These guys got money and they got, these Gumars that they fuck and just like where you might look at this life on the outside, it's just like, oh man, that must be sick. It's nothing but dread and stress and horrible. It's horrible. The way these fucking guys live. You fucking kidding me? Sopranos, like the every single one of those characters is miserable and scared and unhappy and like fucking just it's the worst. Like why would anybody ever want to choose that life? That's what Sopranos is to me. Same thing with Breaking Bad, Walt like denying, like not letting Elliot, I believe his old business partner's name was, not letting Elliot pay for his not letting him pay his medical bills, and then almost that giving him an excuse to become Heisenberg. There's a lot of. I mean, to me, as someone who can be very proud, and pride can be a very it's not something. It's not some. It's not something that I am proud of. Is what is what I'll say. Is my pride is definitely something that I try to work on, and being too proud. The show is the ultimate cautionary tale of why pride can really can lead to some drastic things happening. Because all of that, like Walter White's pride is all of it. I mean, Mike even says it to him: your pride and your ego and shit like that. Like. It's absolutely nuts how Walter White is a mix of ego and pride, and someone who didn't get out like a part of themselves that they like Walter White could have channeled that part of himself that became Heisenberg at any point in his life, and he could have put that into, gray matter industries, I believe, and he could have channeled that. But from what we see in the show, there are a lot of moments where things just don't happen, and things, they present him in the very beginning, obviously, especially it's like so much of the show he's like Heisenberg that it's hard to remember this, but in the very beginning they portray him as this like weakling, like he is a doormat or whatever in the very beginning, and I get that's kind of why the show is so universally loved and why it's very appealing, is because you're seeing this, it's the ultimate, seeing the underdog completely like demolish the competition. That's what it is Walter White seeming like, at first thinking like, you think that he's this like, weak, like just frail older guy or whatever, this like nerdy like chemistry teacher or whatever, and then he's like literally like throwing fake methamphetamine onto the floor, potentially blowing up all the Tuco's building or whatever the fuck that they were in. Watching Walter White go from being walked on to being the one who knocks, obviously is a fucking is one of the greatest things to witness as as an audience. It's so incredible watching all of that unfold, to the point where even when he's doing horrible things, you always want to like justify it. You want to like tell yourself, well, Walt knows what he's doing. Well, we trust Walt. Like Walt is. It's not that he's a good guy. It's that you just want to root for him anyway. Even though you shouldn't, that's why anti-heroes are so. Even though we see a lot of that nowadays, the anti-hero like Dexter or whatever, some certain characters in Game of Thrones, obviously as well. We love to see that because we're always, you always are interested in why would I like someone who is so unlikable, or why would I care about someone who's so unlikable. So the anti-hero, yeah, Sopranos and Breaking Bad are just the perfect anti-hero television series. Where Breaking Bad has the escalation of all those things, Sopranos, it's interesting how Sopranos kind of starts and ends just kind of where it's the same shit. Sopranos, like Tony doesn't really change, not really. You want to think that he is, like when he's like, takes ecstasy or whatever, he's tripping on shrooms, I forget what, when he does the drugs and he's in like Vegas and all that, or not, yeah, what, Vegas? Yeah, he goes to like Vegas or whatever the fuck. After I'm trying not to spoil shit, and yet I already was like kind of spoiling some stuff, but I didn't say too much, right? Regardless, I don't want to give too much. If you haven't seen Sopranos, I don't want to give too much away. So there are a lot of moments, where like you realize from beginning to end the characters just get older, but things kind of the show is all like in the middle of all these people's lives, the end of some of their lives, but it's such a sobering experience watching The Sopranos. It's just like, damn, like life is not. There's no justice in this world, basically. While we're on that topic, as I did in the yeah. While we're on that topic, let's talk about The Wire. The Wire is a very important show, and I've talked about that on here already as well. But I can never talk about that show enough. I have to rewatch it enough. I'm going to keep this brief because I really haven't watched The Wire in so many years that I don't want to say anything that might be wrong or misrepresenting what the show is. All I can say is, The Wire is almost too good for its own good. It's too perfect in a lot of ways as far as what it's trying to say is almost too well done that it's kind of misunderstood, or it can be, written off as just kind of a bore or a slog. And it's like, the more I read, The Wire is one of those shows, the more I've read about it and looked into it outside of watching it, the more I've appreciated it because I understand a little more of what's going on. It's one of those shows you might not be 100% on what's happening the first time you watch it, but because it's very complex. The whole thing that the show kind of runs into is the complexities of the justice system and how it's really broken as fuck, basically, and society, like a lot of things in society in general that are just like broken and don't work. That's all. That's like the main statement that it's making, and it's a really good fucking show. What was another one that I just had another show in my head that I wanted to talk about, and now I'm forgetting. Yeah, let me just move on to another one. Lost. Yeah, I've talked about Lost enough. That's another one of my favorite shows, though. I've talked about that in 3 separate videos on here, though, if you want to go check out that. But Lost is one of my favorite shows. Really, really, I think I was thinking of that when I started talking about how complex The Wire is, or how, yes, like the more I looked, Lost is the same way as far as the more I looked into it and read more like, analytical like breakdown videos of like the timeline and all that stuff, you start to appreciate it a lot more. I really do love that. HBO, a lot of these shows are HBO and not Breaking Bad or Lost or whatever, but a few other HBO shows that I would just recommend anybody watch that are also some of my favorites are Oz and Boardwalk Empire. I want to move on to some other types of shows is all while I'm talking about just TV in general, I guess, because I have a lot of TV shows that I love and a lot of stuff that I want to say right now. But Oz and Boardwalk Empire, those are just some recommendations that I have. Those are other, like, just like The Wire or Sopranos, just kind of brutal and hard to watch in a lot of ways because of how grisly it can be. Those shows are just as grisly as anything else out there. Let's get into some comedy TV shows. Let me just list them all so that I can make sure that I have them all, and then I'll talk about each of them individually. Some of my favorites are Seinfeld, Chappelle's Show, The Boondocks, Metalocalypse, Curb Your Enthusiasm, obviously, and some others that I'm gonna get into. Let's go off of there's so many. South Park, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Comedies, there's a lot of TV shows. They're comedic TV shows that I fucking love. So let me just try to go one by one. Let me just get into Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm first. So let me break these down, all under their own separate things, I guess. Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm are just they're lovely, just observational, humor-driven TV shows that really show off how fucking funny Larry David is and how smart he is as a comedic writer and how good he is at sculpting stories. I saw him at the Hard Rock here in South Florida last year, I believe, and I didn't even know they were going to have this, but they were letting people ask him questions. The only thing I would ask him is, when did he figure out that he enjoyed the way he writes seasons for Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm? I love that he has like an overall like a main story arc throughout the entire season, while each individual episode has its own kind of one-off story as well. And I'm wondering when he, started getting into that rhythm, and just why he's so good at that. I love that he's so good at that. He's very good at telling, a main overarching story, as well as having all those individual episodes be like lovely chapters within that story arc. Seinfeld season 4 and 7 kind of have their own little story arcs like that. And then each season of Curb, pretty much after season 3 or 4, each season kind of has that as well. Larry David's just funny. That guy is just very, very fucking funny. I hate that he's so old. I'm so fucking freaked out about losing him. I adore Larry David so fucking much. He's my favorite person in the world. Literally, like, if I ever had a spirit animal, it's literally him. Larry David is me in 60 fucking years, or not 60 years. God, I'm a lot older than I'd like to think. That's me in 40 years, actually. God, fucking. Fuck. I hate that I'm getting older. Anyway, Larry David's the shit. That's all I need to know. Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm are fucking masterpieces when it comes to TV comedy. Chappelle's Show and The Boondocks, obviously when you heard I was going to group things together, you know that those are going to be grouped together. Those shows are both very misunderstood as far as the point that it's trying to make and then how it comes off. It comes off as very, it's a very, very abrasively driven, racially driven comedy in some ways. I like that Chappelle's Show, not all of his bits were racially driven, but a lot of them are, obviously. The Boondocks, the whole series is pretty much driven by that theme, at least, by that, not even things based in race, but the having a dialogue about it. And because those shows are both like both the creators are black men, them having the freedom to talk about that in their own way is the most lovely thing. It's such a necessary thing, I think, and it's such an important. These are very important conversations that need to be had, and it's such a shame that the way that those shows are presented versus what they're actually trying to say are very like opposite to me. Like they're show, and again, 2000s was kind of that like unhinged time where people were allowed to do that. Like some of South Park's most gnarly shit ever. I'll get into that show obviously too here, but some of South Park's most gnarly shit was in the 2000s. So they were able to do that. It's what I mean. It's a shame that people. Those are the types of shows that the genius of it is extremely misunderstood, and the how much of it kind of falls on deaf ears is just kind of tragic to me. That's what I get from the shows. They're so fucking funny, and they're just very honest, or it's just trying to go to an extreme to kind of to try to make a point, but it's like people only saw the extreme. That's what my takeaway is from those shows. They really went for it, and then and it's like they it unfortunately opened up a lot of bullshit. It opened up a lot of people being able to just easily misconstrue it. That's all. It's like it's completely misunderstood. They're funny as fuck. Let's get into the things that I like, the things that are positive about it, at least because that felt like such a downer. But I wanted to make that point before I continue talking about them. That's all. It's like that's my 2 cents on it, and I hope that that's I hope that made sense, because I was trying to be extremely careful with how I worded that to not sound bigoted as fuck, or not sound like I was an example of the thing that I was just holding in contempt. So that's all I was trying to be careful with just now. They're so funny though. But yeah, like the show, just I think the acting in those shows, all of the side actors in Chappelle's Show, like all the random actors that they just, Charlie Murphy is so fucking funny in that show as well, and Chappelle just being goofy. I love like seeing Dish. He's so serious now, and obviously like is who he is when it comes to just like how he wants to present himself. He has millions of people that will listen to him. So I totally understand if he's wanting to take advantage of, not even take advantage of that, but if he's wanting to, really formulate his own opinions in that way, or if he's, using his, I think that's important. I think that's very important for people like him to be able to do their thing and not, not look so much into it, because they're just like words that somebody's saying. As far as like, well, all I'm saying is like how serious he is as a stand-up comedian, or how he definitely has like a lot of is a bit on his like soapbox, I guess you could say. Again, I think he's earned the right to do that though, and I think he is one of the few people in the world that I respect his mind enough that I want to hear him out and I want to listen to what he has to say. But going back to the show, Chappelle's Show, he's so fucking goofy in that, and I love his just like screaming and his like high-pitched fucking like, pre many cigarettes being smoked Chappelle, his voice just being like, that like scream that he does. It's just always, he's just so funny and goofy in that, and that's my favorite fucking thing. It's as if it's almost like as if Kramer was the main character in Seinfeld, where like, Chappelle can be that like wacky person, and he is like the lead guy, So Chappelle's Show is just awesome. All the voice actors in the Boondocks. John Witherspoon is one of my favorite people ever. I was talking about War of the Worlds 2025, talking about Ice Cube and Friday, and yeah, John Witherspoon was in that too, obviously. So John Witherspoon in this, and all the voice actors. The guy from Malcolm in the Middle who voices Uncle Ruckus, Gary. I forget his name. Gary Anthony something. He's amazing as Uncle Ruckus. Regina King as Huey and Riley. All of them, all of the voice actors, and that show, I was watching some of it earlier today. Boondocks is so cutthroat funny. Like, it's just it's so in your face, and just and doesn't hold back. I love that the Boondocks threw a lot of punches in its comedy as far as what it wanted to say. The Boondocks is one of the smartest, most important fucking shows ever made, because of how much wisdom there is in that. Huey's character is just this little, this big-haired genius kid who's while he might seem very, cynical and pessimistic, he's right a lot of the times, and he wants to try to do right. He wants to try to do the right thing, and you just feel for him as far as like he's surrounded by like things making that harder for him, people and other things getting in his, not even getting in his way, but making that more challenging for him. Or basically, he's got a lot to offer all of these people, and it doesn't matter, kind of thing. Like he has such a wise brain, but it's not. Maybe the point of that is that only the audience can see that, because we're the only ones in his head hearing his narration. But Huey Freeman, I think, is one of the most admirable main characters, one of the most admirable characters of any TV show ever. And I only hope to have the smallest ounce of wisdom that I don't know, it's just I know it's a fictional character, but the kind of person that he represents, or that level of mindfulness and intelligence, is something that I strive to achieve every day, and I only hope to get close to how conscious Huey Freeman's character is. Both very smart shows, absolutely genius writing. Chappelle's Show and the Boondocks. Shout out to Neil Brennan as well in Chappelle's Show. He's a big part of that as well. But those shows are so smart and so fucking funny, and a very big part of my childhood. I feel an insane amount of nostalgia for both of those shows, and I'm very grateful that I grew up with them. And I definitely misunderstood them when I was a kid, but as I've gotten older, I'm so grateful to see such honesty being displayed in a television show, and seeing these men's voices being heard is the most important thing that I could have been exposed to when I was younger, and I'm very grateful for that. Metalocalypse is a very underrated show. Let's get into some Adult Swim stuff, because I have a couple of shows that I absolutely love on there too. Metalocalypse is what a shame that it costs so much to make it, because we only get little bits of it here and there. I think they released... I didn't watch the rock opera movie from years ago, and I didn't watch the recent movie that they made. I'm not 100% if it's actually concluded or not. I've only watched the show. I've actually only ever watched the series itself and not the two movies. So there might be, you might not consider me a fan, but it's more so like I'm saving them, and I don't want to not be able to watch them for the first time again. A lot of times I don't want to watch things because I hate how I can't watch things for the first time more than once, So once you watch, that's it. But anyway, I might watch those soon now that I'm thinking about it. But Metalocalypse is an incredible it's such a funny parody and an amazing satire of like metal culture, or like the idea of what rock stars are like behind the scenes, off stage. It's the funniest satire of that, and how they're just not even like jackasses. How they're just musicians. That show. If there was ever a show that's very like real about how musicians are, it's them. Like Death. It's Metalocalypse. Like Death Clock is this badass. The funniest part about that show is how they play them up as like the greatest band in the world, that like their fans kill themselves for them, and that they fucking go crazy over them. And they actually are a fucking good band. Like Brendan Small is fucking awesome, dude. Metalocalypse is the shit. It's fucking awesome. Like, as far Death Clock is the shit. I mean, the band is the fucking is some of my favorite metal songs, and some of my favorite, like, that's one of my favorite metal bands ever, easily. But it's so funny how they're like this badass band, and like these fucking like insanely sick fucking performers, rock stars, and then behind the scenes they're just kind of like, just dumb, like bored and boring kind of dudes. It's so fucking funny how opposite and like how non-metal their lives are. That's the funniest part of the show to me, is how like they want to live in this like world of metal and blackness and darkness or whatever the fuck, and they don't and yet everything outside of that is like seeing them in the normal society and normal, like when they're hanging out with their parents or anything like that, is the funniest fucking thing, because of how much they stand out, and it's just a solid satire on like the idea of what a lot of those guys are, and how accurate a lot of that stuff is, how they're just, a lot of them are just doofuses in that way, and I love that. Like that's kind of what rock and roll is, and that's what being a rock star is like you just have to be the rock star. Like, being a musician myself, I've always taken pride in that. Like, I am just a musician. I don't have to be anything else. Like, I'm not posting these videos to be some sort of like guidance for, like, I hope that if you find guidance in any of these videos, hey, that's coincidence and that's great. I'm glad to hear that. But these videos are just, just something I feel like making, and I'm not, at the end of the day, like anything I say, I'm just a dumb musician. I'm just like some guy who makes art, so I relate to that a lot. Is all like them being musicians, and these like, that's how I've felt playing in, like, when I used to play with some bands in the past and certain bands that I still play with now. You feel that like moment of being a badass, and then everything outside of that is just normal, normal as fuck. So I think because I'm a musician, I am very biased to the show, obviously, and I just, it's so funny. Like, not only the more of a musician you are, do you like that, but if you really like get metal culture, if you know what that's like. I was like really into metal when I was younger, so I do get like what those types of people can be like. It's such a funny fucking show. Tim and Eric Awesome Show, Great Job is another one of my favorite shows, as well as Eric Andre Show. I think that Tim and Eric Awesome Show is some of the greatest, like, absurdist bullshit, lacking any kind of depth, like the opposite of what storytelling should be, or what presenting things in a TV formula, the formula of television or whatever. It's like totally the opposite of all that, and it's just purely absurdist, and I fucking love it for that. I don't want this to be so long. Holy fuck, I'm a half an hour in. I watch a lot of TV, so this is going to be a little longer than I expected. I'll keep that short. Let me just burn through a couple of these next ones like quickly. Tim and Eric Awesome Show is just like the OG brain rot, like the if you're someone who edits a lot, I do, like, I've edited a lot of videos in my life. If you're someone who does a lot of video editing, Tim and Eric Awesome Show, Great Job is the funniest. It's just such a lovely celebration of low quality, low budget edits, and like the just how stupid you can make stuff look if you force it to. A lot of the stuff we see on the internet now is directly inspired by them, and I'm sure they were inspired by other artists as well that I just don't know, or I just can't think of at the moment. But Tim and Eric Awesome Show, Great Job is amazing. I fucking love it. Specifically their show, and then the $1 Billion Movie. I like some of the other stuff they've made outside of that. Like, I've seen some Tom Goes to the Mayor and some of their other stuff. But those are that's like where they really flourish, is those two, the show and $1 Billion Movie. Eric Andre's show I like. It's kind of like just a mix of Tim and Eric and Jackass and Tom Green. Eric Andre's show is pretty solid though. Like as far as it just like taking like the craziness of some of those shows and injecting it with fucking speed or whatever the hell. It's like as if all those shows got together and smoked crack. That's like what Eric Andre's show is. I appreciate the original, like taking those concepts and putting it together, like multiple concepts and putting it into one show. Is pretty interesting. I think like that from an originality conceptual, the concept of that is very original, and I think that the just the way that he does it and the vibe that it is, and it's a good high show. It's a very good, like, you're smoking weed and just like, what the fuck is this crap? Once you have that Tim and Eric Andre show, once you have that, like, if you can take advantage of what the fuck am I watching, and knowing that your viewers are kind of wanting to see that, you can do whatever the hell you want, and I love to see that both of those shows have fun with that. I like to see that they absolutely go nuts with it, and it's just a big, like, fuck you to Adult Swim, and Adult Swim is like the kind of network that's just like, they're like, hey, we're here for it, if somebody's watching it, that's all we give a shit about, because that's what that whole network is somebody watching? Is somebody actually watching us? At 3 a.m. or whatever. So yeah, Eric Andre's show is a really lovely example in how to do your own version of something that already exists. Obviously, speaking of Jackass, that's definitely another one of my favorite shows. As much as I think that Jackass, in the movies especially, just that whole thing being appealing and people starting to film public pranks, as much as I think that is why we have a lot of like total shitheads out in public right now, like doing the same exact thing. Like Jackass and Eric Andre are kind of, you could argue that they are kind of the reason, or partly to blame, why a lot of people love to do public pranks and fuck with the public, is because they did it well. They did it very funny. Like they did it just, they did a good job with it, and they basically, you know, yeah, because it worked and because it's some of the best footage. It doesn't help that that's like some of the best footage of both of those shows too, like the Jackass movies, and like some of the funniest bits and all of that stuff is when they're fucking with people in the public. And you know, the stuff that's harmless though, like where Spike Jonze is an old lady and his fucking dress gets ripped off in Jackass #2. Like that's the funniest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. So much that I've seen it too many times, and it's like, you know, all of the Jackass movies and the show, I've watched it too many fucking times. I've watched Dumb, the story of Big Brother magazine. I am a Jackass fanatic. I love Bam Margera and CKY, and maybe I'll talk about Viva La Bam in a second here. Why not? That seems like a perfect segue. But yeah, Jackass is great. It's great to see. I like the stuff. I think an underrated part of the show, especially, is I actually like a lot of the footage where they're just kind of like having fun with something and doing like stunts that even if they're not getting hurt. I think all the stuff where they're getting hurt or the stuff with the animals is interesting, and is as like crazy as it is. Like the footage is like, whoa, what the fuck? You know, it's crazy, gnarly footage. I kind of like the stuff where they're just like on the slip and slide on the big ramp or doing the loop. Or I like the parts where they're just kind of having fun as a gang of brothers in that way. Viva La Bam has that going for it as well. CKY videos are so synonymous with Viva La Bam. I might as well talk about both of them. Or I'll probably be alluding to some of the CKY videos as I talk about this. But Viva La Bam is a really good show. That show is so good at making you interested in everything that's going on. As much as Bam Margera like really does like milk that shit throughout the whole show, and as much as he like is just like such a, like in that era of who he was such a, you know, like practically having sex with the camera. That motherfucker was like, and from what we've seen, he has had sex on camera too. So it's you know, if you know, you know. That's all I'll say about that. If you're a real fan, then you've seen all of his stuff, you know. But no, I'm just fucking around. Either way, Viva La Bam is funny when it comes to. I'm just like realizing that I'm just like realizing everything that I just said and how fucking ridiculous all that was. So, okay. Yeah, where I was getting at with that was Bam Margera was just very good at making you, making everything that he was doing seem a lot more interesting than it was. That's where it's like I can see people being like, oh, brother, with, you know, a lot of the older Viva La Bam episodes, or even at the time, I remember at the time people being like, dude, Bam is fucking lame. Like, that shit is fucking stupid or whatever the hell. And, you know, but at the same time, like you can't help but watch Viva La Bam and feel excited for the most like mundane thing, you know, like they could be doing anything in that show and Bam would just be like, oh man, we're gonna go fucking, dude, Ape's gonna be so fucking mad, you know, like it's just always, that's why they relied on him just like pissing Ape off, because that was like guaranteed good footage, her freaking out and stuff. Like it all comes down to that show just kept being like how can we take advantage of this money MTV is giving us, and how can we, you know, make sure that we guaranteed that we're going to get good footage. Some of the episodes of Viva La Bam are some of the best, like, episodes of reality TV. The best episode of Viva La Bam is the scavenger hunt episode, the season 1 finale, basically, is I think, the best episode of Viva La Bam, because they're all, like, actually doing stunts, and there's just so many things going on. It's, like, every second there's just some, like, deep, like, really solid, basically, like, every amazing YouTube clip that we see nowadays, it feels like a lot of those types of clips in one episode of Viva La Bam. And yeah, Bam was just so good at being like what I was just saying. He was very good at making things feel a lot more exciting than they were. He was so good at that. Even though he was such an asshole, and a lot of his shit was him. A lot of the footage of that show and a lot of the footage of CKY videos and everything, it's him being like a legitimate like piece of shit to his friends and family. It's over now, and the footage is pretty good. It's fucked up. All the stuff where he's fucking with Phil and like his parents and stuff, I don't like that. Like, really like slapping the shit out of Phil is like, it's like so hard to watch because Phil is such a good guy and like the perfect fucking dad, basically. But when he's like, slapping the shit out of his friends or whatever, it's like, all right, at least they're all like doing it to each other. They should have done it to him more, is all. But he was the breadwinner, so they couldn't fuck with him. It's like he knew that. It's like Bam knew that, like that they couldn't fuck with him too much, at least. Anyway, so yeah, Viva La Bam. I mean, that is just my childhood in a nutshell. If you knew me when I was like in middle school or high school, I was literally quite obsessed with Bam Margera at one point. I guess that's it. I don't know how many more shows I can talk about. These are all just some of my favorite TV shows. I have plenty more and plenty that I watched in recent years. I just have had a lot more time to think about the shows that I just talked about than the other ones that I have watched more recently. And I probably already talked about a lot of the ones that I've watched recently on here. Some other suggestions, if you're thinking about something new, check out Barry, Succession, Fleabag. I really enjoyed watching The Middle recently. I watched all of Everybody Hates Chris. Yeah, these are all solid. These are all solid shows. These are some of my favorite shows. And if you want to talk about any of them, or if you like TV as well, you might like this channel because I plan on doing a lot more videos talking about. Yeah, I figured it went out. Fuck. Yeah, if you like TV or movies and all that good stuff, then you might want to check out just any of the other review videos that I've done, or you might might want to check out any videos that I make in the future because I just plan on. I've talked about my fucking. I've talked about myself so much on here that I really want to start talking about the art that I like or just other things that I like and things outside of myself. So yeah, if you like TV shows and movies and stuff, I'll be talking about that a lot more on here, and I hope that any of these suggestions make you want to watch a new show and enjoy something you've never experienced before, because it's lovely to have that and lovely to fall in love with the story and really appreciate well-written characters and situations about life and love and loss and whatever. Stories, yeah. Yeah.